look for the silver lining whenever a cloud appears in the.
So, a warm welcome and good morning to each one of the panelists, Aditi, Yaminiji, Dr. Sujata. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to do something very different. So, rather than me introducing each one of you, how about each one of you introduce yourself and then we start the conversation?
Namaste. I'm Dr. Sujata Sheshadrinathan. I'm from the tech background. I run my own fund administration company, which I co-founded in 2004. So I'm the bootstrapper of this company called Basis Fund Services, which is India's leading fund administration, international fund administration company. I hold two patents. I have done my doctorate in blockchain adoption for accounting applications. Always been on the tech side of things. Basis has over $300 million under AUS. We are also one of the leading fund service providers for Indian private equity companies. My role has been that of digital transformation, which I started with kind of like algorithmizing accounting processes. So yeah, that's me, and I run this company. I'm a mother of two. I'm very passionate about deep tech. I do a lot of panel discussions on it, and Baba has been kind. The universe has been kind in sending me a lot of awards and recognitions for my entrepreneurial ventures. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sujata. That's just a very, very impressive and inspiring resume. Over to you, Aditi.
Call, and I've been working with Fortis for the last 13 years. I'm a expressive arts-based therapist, and I run the program across Fortis in India. And we've been doing a lot of work with preventive mental health. The OPDs run. We work with inpatients, so people struggling with physical health issues using the expressive arts in treatment. We do a lot of teaching, training courses. So it's really a gamut of things to look at mental health and preventive mental health, protective mental health across the board. And yeah, I think that's me.
Yaminiji.
Namaste, Suprapatam. My name is Yamini Dalal. I am the CEO for the world's first Sanskritam medium Gurukulam. It's called Agastya Gurukulam. And I have been in the education space for the last 22 years. But my journey for the last 2 years clearly defines where my passion lies and what I always wanted to do. And like Sujata ji just said, universe has been kind and the divine have aligned for me, and that is how I am where I am. A very proud mother of two very beautiful daughters, and head of the family of a very, very large family, panning from Mumbai to Ahmedabad to a lot of other cities. And I think loving each role that I play, and very proud of where I am today. So thank you, Santosh, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
nice to meet lovely women as well. Dhanyavad.
Such a wholesome introduction from all of you. So, I think I would rather have this uh, be a free flowing conversation. But having said that, there's one thing common amongst all of you is that all of you are in leadership positions in your respective fields. And so I have this, I wouldn't call it a question, but I would like to ask you this. So I think many women today are not just breaking barriers, but they're also rendering it irrelevant in many ways. So, this is a question for all of you. In your system, in your work, what is that one system or norm which you consciously choose to change? And this question for all of you.
Who goes first?
Just choose, just that it's fine.
So I come from the tech background.
Hmm.
So hardcore tech services, always the programmer, a key programmer. That's where I come from. So I think this barrier word and this barrier thing started getting very obvious in India when tech came in.
Hmm.
Because if you consider, I hear this often from the young and not so young women. I don't consider people over 30 very young. They're properly in the middle ages. And even them saying, I want to first set up my career and then start my family and things like that. So I go back and tell them, sorry, you're not breaking any glass ceiling out here. India, have you taken a look at the LICs of the world? Have you taken a look at the UTIs of the
Yeah.
world? The RBIs of the world, the SBIs of the world are all properly manned by sari clad women right from your 70s. All of them had beautiful families, amazing kids. They cooked their meals. They didn't even have house help like we did. So it is a non-starter where you say that women are breaking anything now. No, it has already been said for us. To tell you the truth, I was introduced to Sydney Sheldon at 16 by my grandmother, my nanny who was born in Bombay. So you are not setting anything out here. It is all set for you. So if you think about what barrier I would like to break, again I go back to IT. You know, IT was a place from where men, in order to fill their time, they would have smoke breaks. And it is women like me who fought against that. And I used to tell them, I sit here from 9 to 5, 5:30 or 6, and the whole while I'm at work. So it was women like us who raised our voice and brought in the biometric tracking for how many times these men are actually going out for a fag break. Another barrier that I very consciously break at every stage, every day of my life. It is the barrier that tells me that in order to be social, I have to drink. That is one barrier that I have consciously broken. I married whom I married because he, like me, was a vegetarian and a non drinker. It is not a non negotiable, it is each person's own choice. But as a barrier for doing well in business, nowadays people have normalized it. It started in the early 2000s. In order to be social, in order to be recognized for your work, you had to party after work.
Hmm.
It is women like me who have said, no, I'm not doing it. My work speaks for it. So these are the couple of barriers. So first of all, family, and that I want to give time to my family fully. So you're going to stop your career at that point, right? When you're going to have a family. Those things are not necessary. Women are by nature, they are born beautiful creations of God. We are natural at multitasking. We are multidimensional. Unlike men who say, I either do that or either do this. Don't fall into that trap. We are multidimensional, we are multitaskers, and we really don't need to stoop to the new paradigms, new age paradigms, in order to be successful in life at anything we do. It may be a career, it may be mothering. Why should I believe some reel that has come on Instagram about mothering? No, there is no need to fall into these kind of traps. We can always set our own rules. We are capable of creating our own standards. That's what my belief has been always. Thank you.
Awesome. Aditi?
So I think for me, a couple of different things. I think in terms of looking at mental health more than gender, I think in a clinical setup, what would happen was the initial, you talked about invisible challenges perhaps were around the fact that mental health was considered very secondary as part of the medical community versus, let's say, other healthcare needs that people would come with, and it has evolved significantly from when I started to today. But I think one of the challenges would be that who was to be sent to a therapist or a psychiatrist or whatever was like, if it's either very extreme and unmanageable or it's a child, so it's convenient for the parents or whoever it is to be like, you can handle it, you do some artwork and the child will be fine. I think it was very hard for people to come to a place where they started recognizing their own needs in a society that's fairly isolated. So, what Dr. Sujata was also saying um, is very hard to do, which is why you have one or a couple or a handful of Dr. Sujatas. So you find a lot of people in today's narrative in the corporate world also struggling with this balance or challenge of how to manage their life, or how to manage their headspace about looking at the way, yeah, looking at the world or their profession or their homes in this way, which would be a healthy space. So I think one was my challenge of sort of beginning to break norms and build a team which the community understood was doing the work we were doing across sectors. And I think the second is now when I'm working with women across the board and people across the board, recognizing the mental health challenges that they face. So while they might want to turn around and say something, what is the rest of the community saying back to them is not shabash, karte raho, yeah, yeah, you can do this. It's you're getting pushback, you are getting, and you have to keep fighting. So that is still the reality that you're still fighting. Are we in a very different place than we were some years ago? Yeah. Do we need to be in a very, very different place in another decade? Absolutely.
Yamini ji, what is that? What is that one norm you consciously chose to change?
As far as breaking barriers, Santosh, I think education space has always been a space which has kind of understood the needs of a woman.
Hmm.
So where that is concerned, I don't think we really had too many challenges. Of course, on a day-to-day basis, each one of us has our fair share. But for me, the biggest challenge was moving from a corporate career in education to Agastya Gurukulam. To a Gurukulam, which is Sanskritam medium, and being a part of a large corporate and moving to this, everybody was like, "Ab tum bachchon ko padhaogi ya tum bharji banaoge? Are you kind of going to kind of produce pandits in the future? As in, where were you and where have you landed?" And you were kind of jet setting, traveling every week, and now you're going to be working from home. So for me to set that norm that yes, I'm working from home, but I'm working, I am not available at all times. So that was a challenge initially, but I think things kind of started falling to perspective pretty. I think it's up to us as individuals how we want to set up our ecosystem. I really don't want to blame the society or people around. Naysayers will come all your life. You're going to have people who are always going to say that this is not how it should be, but it's up to you how you really want to kind of take and stick your ground and kind of march ahead. And that's something which I think each one of us here, I think, will agree that you need to have a very strong conviction in what you're doing. And if that is clear, I think there is absolutely no impediment or challenge that comes your way.
I,
So,
I want to ask, just go back to Dr. Sujata. You mentioned about, and that those were important points. Uh, Tech has always been known to be a male-dominated space. I mean, there's no question about it. Um I really want you to, if you could share some of the barriers you face. And I think I have my friends who are working in the tech space, not just in India, but even in the US. And every single day, they don't complain about the challenges. But I think one of the things which I was just before this session, I was talking to my friend, and she said that she kind of turned every single barrier into an opportunity. And she said that you can sit out there and say these are challenges. And I think that does not hold true only for women, for all genders. I think we have to turn our barriers into opportunities, but specifically in this field, because I think what's happening is I was conducting a session on STEM, women in STEM, and we've been having all of these big conversations about women participating, things going, but in the actual session I just had three and the rest were all boys. So two questions. One is, are they being shy, are they being scared, or do they feel and we are talking about today, they were in their 20s. Is it because they feel that the growth path is not going to be really, they really have to struggle too much, there are going to be too many challenges? Your thoughts on it?
That's a lovely, lovely question, and I can talk on that for an hour. I won't do that. So let me collect my thoughts around it. So
Mhm.
let me tell you this thing first. So as a woman,
Mhm.
everything gets a little bit confused here because the lines are not very clear. I'll tell you why. Because at the end of the day, woman is the chief caregiver. I do not believe in these concepts of co-parenting and all that because men and women are not equal. Women are superior, and that is going to be and the world is not going to take you lightly when you're superior, right? When you walk into a room you make more enemies. That's a statement that my father said. When you walk into a room, people have already decided to be your enemy. So as far as STEM is concerned, and let me tell you this one thing. For me, maths is a matter of passion. And I have spent my late nights drilling it into my children's head also. For me, music is a matter of passion. So if I go back to thinking in retrospect, every struggle that you face successfully, you have mitigated it and you have made use of it. You know, every challenge that you face successfully means it's a challenge that you used as an opportunity. But that's what you realize much later. When you're undergoing it, you are in trouble. So the woman's challenge for me started with me landing up in Chennai. Chennai is very hostile to outsiders. I don't mind saying it on any platform, national, international, wherever. Chennai is hostile to outsiders. And I don't look like a part of the ecosystem there. So they were even more hostile to me. Now, when we were discussing Mumbai, I will tell you this on camera today. I was even told once, the guys, I was waiting to meet one of the new managers who had joined. That was not my seating place. So I was in between some of those younger guys of the team, and they were planning for a night, for an evening at some bar or pub. They made a statement which said, Madam Kirna, Madam is from Bombay, she will of course join. Which means, what is there for Madam? She'll of course join our gang in drinking and boistering. I immediately went and reported that statement. I said, I can drag you up to anywhere for this. You better apologize or I'm dragging you to anywhere for this. So you have to be very careful about every single statement, every single event that occurs. And this is over and above your job performance. Whether
Mhm.
in tech or whether in any other line, a woman faces these kind of challenges.
Mhm.
You always hear this thing that, women are bad drivers. Catch me driving. I can scare it out of any man. It is being said because you're better at it. They are putting you down so that you don't go and challenge them, in their own, what do you say, we call it kundu cheti lakudre order, which is like in an invisible well. You're just being a frog of a well. So we have to understand that just being good is your main challenge. By being who you are, you're challenging others already. For me personally, the challenges started with being in Chennai. The challenges started with having no family support, two brilliant children. It is very easy to bring up mediocre children. It is very difficult to bring up brilliant kids because they need their activities. They are into 100 things. They are winning 100 prizes, and you have to provide the ecosystem to support it. So that was another challenge I faced. But if you have an integrity of purpose and if you're sure about what you're doing for whom and what are you seeking to achieve, then that goal should be the only thing that you see. Hundreds and thousands of barriers exist for women, especially in tech. But let me tell you this very clearly. Women are very, very good with algorithms because women, since they are naturally good at multitasking, they are also naturally good at cutting everything off and focusing on something. I was caught sitting cross-legged trying to understand some code when actually the MD, the CEO, had brought some Japanese visitors and people were trying to shake me, and I was like, "Ah!" because I was focusing. So as long as we are able to achieve that focus, cut off from the rest of the sound, which I'm telling you, women are super capable of doing. When we are mothering, we from India. Come on, yeah, who carried the chavi ka gucha? Who carried the treasury of the house? It was a women. So we don't have to be told that there is biases are a way of life. Everybody out there, man, woman, is watching out only for themselves. If you find their behavior biased, it is your interpretation of their behavior.
Mhm.
They can also find your behavior biased. Let us remember that. If you find somebody biased, you unbias yourself. It is your interpretation. So as long as you are able to, so the point here in tech is that you need a lot of intelligence to be able to achieve anything there. So when you have people telling you that Indian tech industry is populated with a lot of people but not populated with a lot of skill, it is a truth. Always in life, follow your passion. pursue that what you would like to do. As long as that, see what happens, most people come into tech for the dollars, for the money. They come there only to earn that extra differential payment. You won't earn this much in a national bank as you much you may earn in an IT company. But they must remember that that job that they do in a nationalized bank may not be as challenging as a job that they're signing up for. That they are not able to accept. I have always maintained, if your work is your passion, your work is your life, your work is your balance. Apart from that, everything else will sort itself. You will get the courage and the energy to face it as long as you're passionate about what you do. Don't work only for money. The problem occurs when people work only for money.
Wow, thank you. I do have a small follow-up question. And was tech always your first career choice?
Yes.
Or, okay.
See, no, tech career choice, yes, because by the time I realized I couldn't, I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. And well, some things happened at home, and I was redirected towards tech by my father. They didn't want me to pursue medicine. I had the marks for it. And then I wanted to become, I wanted to get into civil services. I was preparing for it, and that preparation that I did when in school enabled me to score IIT level at GRE at 28 with two kids in tow. So tech was not my first choice, though I realized that I was brilliant at tech when I joined AppTech and I was just doing things better than others. I was given a scholarship. I was given another scholarship. You know, at 18, 19, wo thoda, it does get into your head a little bit. And yes, I'm good at tech and I love tech. So it happened to me and I just went with the flow. Yes.
And do you feel? I, I think there are more and more young women who are now coming into tech, and that I'm sure that. Uh,
No, no, no. That's not the right statement at all. Women were always there in tech. In fact, it was tech which brought out this equality business.
mhm.
This I am equal to a man was started by tech. I started in tech when in 97, 96. From that time onwards, I have not seen any difference in the number of women coming into tech. No, number of women being noticed in tech also was very high. I've always had women managers. It is a tough job to do, but there have been enough women out there. I don't really think I sign up so much for an anti-woman bias in tech. That doesn't exist. There is an anti. I'm sorry to say, brainlessness bias is there, but that will be there everywhere, and that will occur as long as you're not doing that what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about something and you choose to do that for your life, then you will easily be the most brilliant person out there because you will yourselves encourage yourself to do better. And there will be so many things that will happen that will support your effort. So I don't really think that the women in tech are anything more now. Of course, the women in tech, like me who sit on panels, the leadership positions are less today because at that time, even now, women, a lot of them take career breaks and don't come back. That is something we have to fight. That is something that women have to take up as a challenge. But otherwise, I don't really think the percentage of women there has changed.
All right, Aditi. When it comes to express art therapy, when I first learned about it, when we were when we did our first podcast, and I should have probably learned about it a little more earlier, but I realized that in many ways it challenges mainstream, you know, healthcare approaches, right? Um, how do you advocate for its recognition and integration into clinical settings?
I think a couple of things again, and this is also now going off what Dr. Sujata says, is that if you're passionate about what you're doing, if you're well trained or good at what you're doing, and a lot of times the potholes or the gaps come in that, is that if I say that, oh, it's just, I love painting and I love music and that makes people feel better, that's the premise of art therapy. But if I can talk to you about the neuroscience aspects of it, or what it does for the brain, or which particular clinical illnesses it works well for, and this is the evidence I have for change, in addition to the fact that the arts have a long standing history well before any of us in healing, that combination is how you advocate for change in this healthcare setup, where I think I started off and I used to laugh and say balloon wali didi to now actually being understood in terms of what I do versus, oh yeah, this young girl is walking in and must have started when I was, I think, 22, with, taking balloons and musical instruments and ha ha hoo hoo and all of that. So I think it evolves in how you communicate, it evolves in the knowledge you bring to the table, and in the evidence in your work that you're able to show, as you grow. We started off with one center where they kind of consented to being like, okay, let's try this out and see how it goes. And now we're across the country at about 12 centers with art therapists, which the hospital pays for and is a free program for any inpatients that are visiting. Um, so
And the
that,
reason why I asked you this question is, one, having seen mental health, um, you know, mental wellness situations very close at my side, and when we have discussions, even in the West at this point in time, I think it's still not seen as a condition. I mean, when people talk about mental wellness, or so, and on top of that, when you bring in express arts, so it's kind of, then it builds up, isn't it? You are talking about something which is really serious but was not taken on seriously, and on top of that you bring in express art therapy. So, and the reason why that's why I asked you this question is that it must have been challenging for you to probably get through, because I'm sure even when the first center was set up, it was still you know I would say, let's take a chance and see if this works out. Although I know express arts therapy per se, worldwide, probably in the West, it's been worked upon, and there has been success, but I'm sure it wasn't easy when you started off, and that was my basic
yeah, yeah.
question.
There was almost zero knowledge about it, and I think again it's how you do what you do. I find now the generation we are now hiring will come in and say, oh, but where's the art studio? And I'm like, in most of the centers, there's no art studio. You're working in a hospital setup. You have a cart, you have, OPD rooms change and evolve, and it's not one consistent one. And I think you realize that even when I started out, the Western sort of books or schools of psychology will say, okay, for movement based work, you need a certain space, you need
Hmm.
mirrors, you need a lot of these things. And here I was, and it was really lovely because my mentor at that point was like, okay, but what do you have? And what is your goal and what are you going to do with it? And I remember getting this really chotu chamber with a sink and a table and a computer, very not conducive to mental health, and working with a couple where we had done movement work in that tiny space. And it was fantastic because I think slowly you start realizing that what works somewhere, and there's a lot of the art and the culture comes from the east, which has always been there. So how do you utilize what you have, and culturally what exists in our colors, in our music, in our rhythm, and bring that to the table? And you don't need a wooden floored dance studio or or all the art materials available. I can work with coffee powder and haldi and mirchi, and it's fantastic. And I remember, I don't know if I said this on the podcast, but during COVID, also working with a person who had gone through domestic violence online, and the only thing she had, including at home, was sindoor. And that is something she used to really portray how she was feeling in that moment on a printer sheet of paper. Again, we didn't have all sheets of paper which the books will tell you to have, or this extensive amount of material. You go and pick up pattas from outside, and as long as that can be your form of expression and the person you're working with knows how to help you transform that or work through whatever it is that you're going through, I think that was really my challenge to bring to the front. And nobody, it evolved. And I think where gender perhaps played a role was that, again, a lot of the medical community, in terms of the doctors there, were, psychiatry is more male house,
Hmm.
psychology is more women are acceptable. Now it's evolved. Now even in our team, we have a lot more female psychiatrists, we have a lot more male psychologists, and it's really nice. It's just evolving in terms of how people are choosing their careers or whatever they want to do. But I think a challenge of recognizing that your worth comes from what you do, And again, like I can't remember if either it was Miss Yamini or Dr. Sujata, that you, the money also, whatever it is, comes from anywhere. You could, as long as you perform where you are. So this misconception that, okay, only if I do this will I get this. This is the career I need to pick for this outcome, is not necessarily true. So I think there were a interesting bunch of challenges, but I think building boundaries was very helpful, which it took a long time. I think it took me 8 years to learn. When I had my first kid, I was like, wow, like why should I answer all calls? Or why should I start panicking when the phone rings and my boss is calling? I was like, I don't have time right now. And the shift from then to now in the last 5 years is amazing because I'm working technically more, making technically more, but less hours. And I have this fabulous balance that I get to run. It's taken now, some whatever, 13 years, but it's very, very possible, as long as you are able to do that and push back on those boundaries. So thank you for saying that as well to both of you.
Yaminiji, um, and I feel that I hope my understanding is correct, but education is traditionally seen very hierarchical, and but Gurukulam learning actually challenges that. Uh, if my understanding is correct, yeah.
No, very valid question. And like Sujata ji said, I could talk hours about this. Uh, Getting the parent body to accept a concept like Agastya Gurukulam. It's very similar to a kind of a mini battle that Aditi ji must have had, getting parents to accept art as therapy. Because uh, parents, yes, are looking for alternatives. There is no doubt about that. Parents are finding gaps, finding lacunas in the formal system today. uh, there is a lot changing on the education landscape. And I think India is really kind of waking up to the fact that formal education is really quite redundant. As a matter of fact, I was just teaching my younger one yesterday. She has a geography paper today. She's in grade six. And I'm teaching her North America and South America, and she knows the mountains, the rivers, the ravines, the canyons, the gorges of North America. And when I asked her, I said, "Kana," and she kind of comes to me and she says, "Ma, do you think my cousins in New York, are they studying India? Do they know as much as I know about their country?" And I said, "Sweetheart, unfortunately not." And then she said, "Then why am I expected to study about their country and not study about mine?" So that is something at Agastya which we very consciously are trying to align. We are reviving the Shastras. We are getting the children back to their roots, back to the rich tradition and cultural fabric that we have enjoyed for thousands of years. And a culture and a tradition that has made Bharat the forerunner. Those were our golden days. And there is a reason why Macaulay very systematically has kind of degraded the education system for Bharat. And unfortunately, parents are flocking to these fancy IGCSE, international schools, American board, IB board. But honestly, Indian DNA is not cut out for this. And I think all we here on the panel are products of a very, aggressive rote system. And I think that particular system works really well for us. So the basis of our Gurukulam is also Kanthasti Karanam. Kanthasti Karanam is nothing but memorization. You are memorizing a lot of your shlokas, your stotras. So children at Agastya, probably at the age of 10 or 11, would know a part of the thesaurus in Sanskritam.
Mhm.
Find me one child in a formal school who says my child knows 30% of the dictionary. Cannot. But at Agastya, my child in grade 8 would know the entire thesaurus, which is called the Amarkosh, by heart. And that is what we really want to kind of inculcate. And Of course, it is getting easier than what it was 5 years ago. The awareness is spreading. Parents are, kind of sensitizing towards it. And of course, spaces like tech, when Sujata ji said about technology, that's really helping Agastya grow really well. When parents are talking of coding comes, the basis of coding is from Sanskritam. And if your knowledge of Sanskritam and Ganitam, when you have your Lilavati, Bhaskaracharya, Aryabhatiyam, when you have that under your belt at the school level, there is absolutely no force that can stop you going ahead. So, yes, the journey is difficult, but obviously, we're a very stubborn lot. We're going to kind of stand rock solid and ensure that we kind of really live this and make this a system accepted widely in Bharat, for sure. So, yeah.
Question. This is, I think, interesting. Uh, this is for all of you. You could choose to answer them, the way. Um, I think for a long time, and even today, when we look at leadership, it's often tied to titles and visibilities, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but if leadership were to be defined only by actions, what qualities do you believe truly defines it? Each one of you. Dr. Sujata, with you. Let's start off with you.
Huge paradigm shift there, isn't it? Leadership is never defined by qualities. Leadership is always defined by perceptions of others of your qualities. So, I would go back to a couple of things that Aditi said and Yamini ji also said. See, one thing that Aditi said, become pick up on your native wisdom. You know,
Absolutely.
when she
Yeah.
was using the sindoor, when she was, implementing her knowledge in Indian circumstances, she was nativizing it.
Hmm.
So from there comes one thing. The second thing about what Yamini ji said, I'm myself a student of Sanskritam at school level, and by Baba's grace, I had taught it there. I love the language, and what I love about that language is, see, I am often blamed for being a very logical person. I can get very, what do you say? I just any issue that comes up to me, I don't emotionally evaluate it before I logically evaluate it. Emotions do matter, sentiments do matter, but that is after logic for me. So that came from Sanskrit, the base of logic. Who developed this whole system based on logic? When you say you a person interprets as his mind, yatho manas tata bhavati. That is because we have the right to interpret. We Hindus have the right to interpret, and that should be applicable to all human beings. Whether it is leadership, whether it is coding, whether it is art therapy, what we see and what we implement is as per our understanding, and there we have become a leader. We are there honing our own skills, right? So if you ask me, not just with Sanskritam, born as an Iyer, we are always exposed to music and dance. Believe it or not, I remember having come across long back in a panel discussion one person mentioning that people who chant Rudram or who are exposed to Rudram from childhood are naturally good at maths in their later life.
Yes. Yes.
So your brain waves, I'm sure even Aditi, of course, Yamini madam would agree with it, but Aditi would also agree with us that the mind conditioning ultimately it is that is what determines how your brain is going to work, right? So if you ask me about leadership, these are the qualities that I look out for, and I am very proud of having in me. First is it should be native. Whatever is your leadership style, whatever is your style of handling issues, should be particular to that particular issue, that place, that people. How you handle an issue in Chennai is very different from how you handle it in Delhi. Between Delhi and Mumbai, I don't even need to talk, right? So a leader is a person who knows how to adapt as per the circumstance. So a leader is a person who knows to use his knowledge and implement it, practically implement that knowledge. That is a very different thing. You can write tomes and tomes. So I have done my doctorate versus there is something called a PhD. PhD is academic in nature. Academics do a PhD after studies. Whereas when you do a doctorate, you have to show practical experience and practical implementation of what you are, theorizing or whatever you're trying to prove. So that is another very important leadership quality. Whatever you have learned, whatever is your life experience, how are you going to implement it? So if you ask me who is a good leader need not be a person who is at the top floor of a tall building. It need not be the most powerful in the C-suite, because those are all circumstantial. Those are things that you may just be at the right place at the right time. But for me, a leader is a person who's able to remain calm in between all crises, and these things happen every day in life. That person who steps up to resolve the issue without calling names, without calling out to people who did right, who did wrong. This is a resolution. Do it if you are able to do that. And that's a leader. And let me tell you this: a leader is always smiling. Under any circumstance. I don't know whether I'm talking about the right person at the right place, but there are some karyakartas I have seen. Um, Absolute terrible circumstance. And this person is standing tall and smiling. I am looking at that person. I'm like, आप भी हंस रहे हो. I am like, that person saying we have seen things like this before. Not us, maybe our forefathers, maybe our ancestors. We will pick out on knowledge and come out with a solution. So if you are able to do that, if you are able to stand up with your head held high, and no matter what the challenge, when you're happy, you're always sharing happiness. When you're challenged, when you're sad, how do you handle circumstances? That defines a true leader for me.
Aditi ji, your thoughts on the qualities of leadership?
So I think adding on from there, when you're talking about a leader being creative, adaptable, um, the part which I think also is important is practicing what you preach. So you can't have anyone who is a leader or claiming to be a leader who is like, I am doing my little thing in my little piece of, this is mine, khatam, and okay, bye. So I think it's also that a lot of times I see leadership feeling to people like, you think of like danda, and I think it's a lot of it needs to be, or a part of it needs to be education. So you carry your team with you, you work with your team, you live by what you expect them to do. So if I tell everyone, you guys come up with an idea for this event that we're doing, and I never have thoughts about it, or I never share, ideas about it, or create with them, or support them when they're struggling with a client, then what am I doing? Right? Again, the answer is not to give everyone the answers and say, yes, this is exactly how you need to do it, because that's not growing their ability to be able to think, or, then become future leaders in that same space. So I think it's really practicing what you preach, and in part, then also being able to share what you know about this with as many people as you can. Because this, I forget the word, what is it called? Gatekeeping. There's a lot of people who feel like I've found some magical answer, and if I share it, somehow I will lose my whatever position or whatever it is. And the answer is just please stop being afraid. You be amazing, and let people learn how to be that, because we have a shortage of good people or good mentorship, and therefore we will struggle in the coming years with leadership. It was never a concept to be held. And again, in I think, this Gurukulam, as much as I'm understanding, that is the idea. You have gurus, and then people learn, and then they become gurus, and that's supposed to be how it travels. So yeah, let's hope more people do that.
Yamini ji?
So I think Sujata ji and Aditi ji have covered a broad spectrum, and I completely am in agreement to what they have said. Just to add, I think a small little bit. According to me, leaders should be very good listeners. You do not kind of have a monopoly on the mic. It's not that the mic is yours and you're the one talking and the rest need to listen. Never. You've just got to be very good listeners, very patient, very involved, I would say. Today, I run a organization with about 70 acharyas under me. And, I'm very, very proud to say that I know what's happening in each one's life. Could it be on a family side? Could it be with a guru shishya interaction? Would it be with a parent? But that's the crux, got to be very, very good listeners, and you have to be consistent. Consistency is something which really kind of will help you hold your fort, will help you hold your position. At the same time, will lend a lot of credibility to the responsibility that has been given to you. So I think for me, I
Okay,
think the topmost is being very patient, good listener, as well as consistency.
awesome. I think
Just Santosh jumping in because as you were talking, I was just thinking this is also the trifecta for what good parenting looks like, right?
Yeah.
That when people come to us and are like, how
I
do we
deserve.
become better? It's exactly these
yeah.
things: consistency and creativity, adaptability, and practicing what you preach. And
I was about to say the first lesson of leadership I learned from. So I grew up with my nani, and back in Kerala in our illam, we used to run around. And one of the things they were because she was a sing. My grandpa died early, so she raised four kids, and then I'm the first grandchild. And one of the things which I learned from her, I think that holds true for me even till today and probably till my grave is the one word I've understood about leadership is service. And the true form of leadership is serving. And I think leaders, you don't have to look out for leaders in corporate boardrooms. We have leaders around us. Our moms. I have this house help who's been when I was living in Mumbai. I've seen the way she's conducted her life. She bought a home for herself with two kids. She cooks different homes, and I remember when she was living in the same place, and then there was an opportunity for the builder to rebuild, what do you call that, renovate or something, the whole building, and she decided to go ahead and buy the apartment. She came to me and she said, we've decided to buy this place, and because they don't have really a streamlined income, they just get uh, the way she conducts herself, way she did it. This was 3 4 years back. She took advance from all of the places she worked. The fact that all of those in the community went out of their way and helped her also shows her integrity. That we just knew what would go wrong. And I remember I was in Noida when I received the message from her saying, Bhaiya, I've paid back the loans. I've done it. The home is ready. She sends her two kids to school. Uh, the other day, in fact, Yamini ji would be excited to hear this. She said, मुझे ना अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है जो जो सिखाया जा रहा है घर में अगर मैं उनको पढ़ा सकूं तो I mean she said in a way she was wanted to homeschool. And there are many such examples like the lady who's still working in my home in Kolkata. I think leadership is something we can find around us all the time, and for me it's an act of service. Leaders who serve, I think, are the best kind of leadership. Um, it's just my thoughts. Um, it's your forum. I'm sorry. I got a little uh, remembered. Sujata ji, I have this specific question for you. Um, if we removed the idea of proving oneself in tech, especially in tech, how do you think women's contribution would be viewed differently?
Well, that's a challenging question out there. See, a couple of things. In tech, now when you ask me this question a few times, I feel I can confess to this. In deep tech on panels, in deep tech on discussions, even in many of the media articles I write, I'm probably the only woman who's talking there. The reason that occurs is that in specifically in tech, what happens is that the scenario is changing all the while. It's a very very rapidly evolving ecosystem. It
Hmm.
has always been like that.
Hmm.
So where the gap arises is that we need to constantly upgrade our skill. We
Hmm.
need to be learners for life.
Hmm.
So the background that, for instance, see, I am an entrepreneur. I didn't start my life as an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
I was an employee. In fact, I was an employee until 2010 when I needed to bootstrap my organization. It is only in 2011, with a lot of protest from the other partners, that I joined. But they had no option because for my function, the one that I did as digital transformation, nobody else was available. Their wives were not up to it. They put those kind of challenges out there. So you have to be able to constantly keep reinventing yourself, constantly keep learning new things. Unlike in most other lines where you may say banking or you may say insurance, and a lot of other alternatives to tech, those lines, the need to learn is not so high. The need to keep learning is not so high. For instance, when I did my doctorate, I actually took a course where I learned to code in blockchains. I've
Hmm.
not just prophesized things, I've actually learned it. So that is something that a woman needs to be able to do if she wants to be on top in tech. Okay. So when we have career breaks and we come back, it's not as if I had a continuous career. I have what I called a scrambled egg career. I have left my job whenever I wished, whenever I needed. I have taken full sabbaticals when my children were born. I'm a very, very proud mother. My first role, my foremost role in life is that I am a mother. Whatever I am, Dr. Sujata Shishadri Dattan goes and sits on stage, talks, does shows. Many times, if it is my children calling, they know I'm at work, I'm in a very critical place where I can't take a call. But if they call, if my mother calls, in spite of knowing that I'm in that position, the woman in me will respond to that call. Because they know that I'm not to be disturbed. In spite of that, if they have disturbed me, I know there's going to be a reason for it. So that is our natural advantage, which
Hmm.
we have to now use to our best advantage. Our ability to handle these multiple roles without having the need to go and take a shot of whiskey is our strength. And we have to play on our strength. But to be good in tech, the underlying condition is constant reinvention, constant learning. And that, because when I went on a career break, what language was there, the way it was being used, may be very different from what came into picture by the time I came back from my career break. Maybe of just 2 years, but 2 years is a huge time. Every year things change. So as long as, so the challenge additionally that women face in tech when they take career breaks are possible. Please remember, because you are in the tech line,
Hmm.
it offers you an opportunity to come back. But if you want to come back, if you want to sit at top, you have to first be able to learn, always be a learner for life. In fact, what Aditi said, you have to be a very patient listener. You have to keep taking, all the hints from the environment as to what you should do to further your career. And the second thing is, you should stop listening to people who tell you that as a woman you can't do this. I'm like, if I, as a woman, I can give birth, whatever you say is not applicable to me, you go take a walk. So we have to be able to challenge those biases. In tech, again, I'm coming back to my line. The challenges, the biases, you don't know the meaning of the word bias unless until you've been in tech. It is that bad. It indeed is that bad. In order to be able to tell people to be quiet and let you do your work, there is only one way out, and that is to be good at your work. Because tech recognizes that more than any other line. In tech, if there are, and I have not made this statement is made by one of the leaders of tech in India. Among 100, there are only 20 who are employable in tech. Among that 20, if you are the best, you will 100% be recognized. Tech does not bias against recognizing a woman or man. Tech biases against recognizing intelligence, adaptability, knowledge. So as long as we are able to be up to date in these lines, I'm sure tech will also, you will find enough women at top in tech also. There are enough women already. Even more will join as long as we are able to keep doing this.
All right. Aditi, what does success look like in a field that deals with emotional healing? Something that's not always quantifiable, right?
No, I think the first line of understanding that piece would be what is client feedback, right? So the people coming to you, the people you're working with.
Hmm.
How are they feeling? There is nothing more clear or important than somebody coming in feeling a certain way or having dealt with a certain kind of trauma or challenge or struggle. And the spectrum is everything from trauma, abuse, violence to everyday stressors to managing some of this, right? That I'm at work, how do I negotiate what's going on? Or I'm an 85-year-old with neurocognitive issues and I'm feeling um, like no one can see me anymore and I'm struggling with a lot of challenges there. So there's a whole spectrum. But when you see someone feel better, communicate that there has been growth and that they are in a better place than they were when they started, or have more skills to be able to cope with the challenges that life will constantly continue to throw our way. That is the biggest marker of success for me in a one-on-one or a smaller setting. I think in mental health, the second big challenge is awareness. So I think now, when we work with schools, when we're working with corporates, the fact that we used to cold call at some stage being like, we're doing this program, we're doing this quiz, we're doing this workshop, to today people are reaching out and, want us to come in to do trainings or workshops or whatever it is. I think that's been amazing. So being able to build awareness about what exists, that it's not one tier that, okay, if you're struggling with mental health, the answer is medicine or whatever, one thing, right? There's this whole gamut that's available for healing. That's a second very large thing. And the third, which is yet to come, perhaps in the future, is how do we realign systems, whether it's education systems, whether it's these corporate spaces, where the whole onus of change cannot constantly forever be on individuals. So how do spaces? So if children are being overdiagnosed with ADHD, can we understand that schooling systems need to change?
Yeah.
That a child is meant to run around and not sit straight at the age of 4 or 3, right? So it's not the child doesn't have ADHD. Some might, a small fraction will, but how do we now start to change spaces and recognize the gaps in all of these spaces that are creating mental health problems very often that don't need to be there? So I think that would be the future marker of success as we move forward.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
mom always tells me this, that we talk a lot about science and mathematics, but she always tells me the power of arts in general, and that's why I feel how much STEAM can play a very important role in our education system, arts, because we've never seemed to have given it its due. The power of art is just, I think for, let me, Yamini ji, this is a question I think which is always there in the mind of a lot of people, especially with the kind of educational model you're looking at. What kind of leaders do you hope to nurture through your educational model?
So honestly, Santosh, we really are looking to nurture torchbearers for Bharat. The reason I talk on a very larger landscape is that we want to really raise change makers. We really firmly believe that being rooted in our Bharatiya Samskriti, in our Indian knowledge systems, is what is going to really help us, kind of give birth to a lot of change makers in the future. And there was this conference I attended at IIT Chennai, which was held for all CBSE schools. So it was a math training, and we happened to be a part of it, and we presented what our curriculum was and what we're doing. And that statement made by the director then has kind of left a real big mark on me. Is that children who have the knowledge of Sanskritam and Ganitam in Sanskritam are the future torchbearers for Bharat. And that is exactly what Agastya is aiming at. We want to decolonize education, for better want of a word. We really are looking to kind of undo what Macaulay has done to Bharat over thousands of years. And there is a really nice book that has changed my perspective on education in Bharat. Is a book by Dharampal, and it's called The Beautiful Tree. And it's in Kannada, so the ones who can read Kannada, I think that's the original version. The essence is really there. Unfortunately, I read the English one. And the first few chapters itself tells you how in Bharat pre British, every village had a school. There wasn't a single village in India, in Bharat, that did not have a school. And the point when the British actually kind of took over and ruled India, Britain had a school which was in less than 100. They had about 88 schools. So from where we were, the fabric where we were at that point to where we are today, it's that journey that we're really looking to undo. So I think that is where our true vision lies, is decolonizing education and really producing children who are very, very rooted in their samskriti and their samskaras, actually.
Yeah, I think this the
Yes,
sanskara is the most. No, go ahead. Sorry.
thing
Please
here.
continue.
So the three sitting on the panel here with you are three women, and I have always held this. Like last Monday, I won an award for innovation for one of my products for which I hold the patent, which is a legal tech product which we have created to for making the process of drafting agreements and contracts easier. It's called Mastercraft. Now, why I'm bringing this up here? If you look at Aditi, you look at Aditi, Ayamini ji, you look at me, we have done something that is not the norm. We are innovators by nature. I always tell this to people, when a baby who can't speak yet is howling away in the night at 2 o'clock, the mother knows how to silence it. She will innovate the method to calm the baby down. I'm talking about Indian mothers. I don't know about the other mothers. So we are by nature innovative. Whatever be the challenge we face, we have to make a dish. We don't have an important ingredient. We really didn't grow up with the Swiggies and the Blinkits of the world. We know how to replace that ingredient with something else. So we by nature are innovative, and that is something that we know how to. If the children are there at home, they've got an exam, but there's a meeting I have to take. I know how to work around that. So we by nature are innovative, and that is something that I want women to start remembering again. Over and above the biases and over and above how you've been treated. Oh, that's a past. Let us look at the present and the future. The future lies in innovation, and I firmly believe that we women are naturally very good at innovations. And if you see, even physics, now we're getting to know Einstein, be it the discovery of the vaccines. We now know that it was probably women who came up with it, whose names were suppressed. Fortunately, in India, that never happened. Knowledge was always given to the person to whom it belonged. I think in India, you're in a much better position as a woman than you were in the West, where they had to fight for the rights to vote. We did. The queens took over as the de facto head of the state when the kings went to battle. So we are much ahead of all of that. But I want women to understand this, that you are naturally good at a lot of things. Don't go by the paradigms that are being set for men. Go by your own paradigms. Be your multi-dimensional, innovative person that you always are, and you will come up with some stupendous ideas that the world cannot ignore. And that is again one of the reasons. One of the reasons I want more women in tech to continue working, because we are capable of that edge of innovation. So to speak. Even computers, everything. At one point, Ada Lovelace was a woman at the end of the day. So we have to remember that that innovative side of ours is not made to spend in front of TV. Back then, watching soaps, now watching OTT. Mat karo. Get on, do that what you're passionate about. There are so many women who are passionate about making papads. What is wrong in that? They love making their pickles.
Yeah.
Perfect. And they're innovating pickles. Amazing. I've got olive pickles. Yes, happens. So, innovation all around can be fostered by women coming back into workforce after their career breaks. women taking their careers as a part of their life, we can come up with a lot of innovative ideas which the world deserves. That is what I would like to say.
Wonderful. I'll just want to wrap up with one question. If the next generation of women didn't have to fight the same battles you did, what do you think they would create instead? This is for each one of you.
I think they'll have,
Yeah.
sorry,
Go
I
first.
think they'll have different battles to fight. Because like I said, again, whether it's men or women, the challenges will keep giving because women have had a different sort of legacy of challenges. It will evolve. But I think through working across challenges is where you get to that space of creation, innovation, being able to deal with emotions. So at a basic level, if the kids are not playing outside and falling off trees, they won't learn problem solving, right? Because there is no creative input of being able to handle things yourself. So I think hopefully not hopefully, they will have other challenges. Hopefully we've mitigated at every generation a leg of challenges that people do not need to face. That 20 years later, this doesn't have to be a conversation, us sitting here and saying, take your break if you need it and draw your boundaries and you will still be amazing. But there will be something else. So I think just know that there will be something to fight. Um, but stand on what has been given to you to really push your boundaries and you know it's amazing to know the legacy that people would have created. Like you said, we couldn't, at some stage people were not allowed to do a lot of things, women were not allowed to do a lot of things. Even when we started, there were a lot of different questions that came your way. But you stood on what others built for you and other women have built, whether in your families or your industries or whatever it is, and then you did this and then someone else will stand on that and do the next
And
thing.
if I were to ask you a follow-up question, Aditi, what piece of wisdom would you pass down to a young woman who wants to change the world through healing and emotion?
Is recognize your worth. Only when you know who you are and what you're contributing, that's when you will be able to actually take the next step, because healing is a very, very hard career. It is very difficult to hold and house all of these things that people bring to us in session, all age groups, all class, all sections of society. And I think to recognize that you are capable of housing that, but that you need to learn to take care of yourself, it doesn't make you any lesser to ask for help, right? I need someone to watch my 5 year old so I can do this. Or I need to be able to tell you that, listen, guys, she's going to come in and be yelling, and please be okay with that. And I'm going to still share what I know, right? It takes a village for anybody. But I think as a woman, one of the things I've learned or I've seen also across my family is ask for what you need, do what you need to do, rally your forces, whether professional or personal. And as a healer, even more so, because otherwise you will collapse.
Hmm.
It's a lot to take up.
Hmm. Okay, Yamini ji.
What I really see changing, especially with the education scenario, is young professionals are now kind of recognizing the fact that the formal system really needs to be given great consideration. And that we really need to visit that entire process and find an alternative. So, yes, the change has started, Santosh. As a matter of fact, I just want to share. Yesterday, summer vacations are coming up. So, summer camp flyers have started coming in to the house. And I found a summer camp flyer where one of the activities was we're going to teach our child how to climb a tree.
Hmm.
And that kind of amazed me. That kind of made me feel that what are we really doing? I don't think anybody ever taught me how to climb a tree. There's a tree, mom said you're going to fall, it's inevitable. You're going to have to get up and climb it again. But unfortunately that's not what it is. Cycling today, you see a elbow pad, you see a helmet, you see a knee pad. I don't think I ever learned to cycle with any pad. My dad always says, until you don't fall and really hurt yourself, you're never going to learn cycling.
Hmm.
So these are things that I feel should kind of the perspective should change. But of course, there is a lot of change where the alternate schemes of education are concerned, and the change is positive. So I'm really hopeful that a lot of organizations like Agastya Gurukulam will be able to create their own narratives, at least have their narratives heard, get a chance to kind of be heard and adopted by parents. So yeah, absolutely. It looks and like Aditi and Sujata ji said, stand your ground firm, believe in what you're doing, and it kind of will pave its way ahead.
Just to follow up on that, what do you think? What is that something you are building today that you hope future generations would inherit?
I think back to our IKS roots, to be very honest. Santosh, today the NIOS board, that's the open board for schooling in India, which is a part of initiative of the Central Ministry of Education, has only three mediums of instruction in which children can appear for a board exam. It's English,
Hmm.
Hindi, and Urdu, sadly.
Hmm.
You know, that is where Agastya wants to get Sanskritam in. So that is our challenge, and that is what our initiative is, to drive Sanskritam into the mainstream. To have that as a medium of instruction and to be very proud about it. It's one of the most scientific languages in the world. There is no second language that comes even close to the semantics of Sanskritam. So I think that is something which is which is my battle to kind of fight, and I'm going to go really strong on it.
I think it's something we're going to see some amazing changes in the next few years itself. I will wrap it up with Dr. Sujata. So, the same question: if the next generation of women didn't have to fight the same battles you did, what do you think they would create instead? And I do have another question along with that, which means how can technology be leveraged to create a more inclusive future for women?
So, two questions. And first, before I start answering the question, Yamini ji, I'm definitely going to contact you because I needed to pick up all my Sanskritam roots badly since a long, long time. Semantics and grammar, there is nowhere, nothing anywhere closing.
Nothing.
So
Absolutely.
that is very true. Now, to come back to tech and to how I would see things here. See, tech, as I said, like each of our fields has got its own individual challenges. If people, if women don't face this, then what are the challenges? Not just women, everybody faces challenges. For women, the nature of the challenges are different, and we continue to face it. Face it. For if I can give you a very frivolous example around this, I am always in Indian clothes. I chose to wear Indian clothes even when I went abroad for my for meeting clients and on work when I was deputed in UK. Always been in Indian clothes. That is a challenge for a woman nowadays. A woman like me who's always with a bindi, who goes around saying, who is that dress designer who says I can't wear my Mangalsutra and bindi on a western dress? Not my monkey, not my circus. A woman like me will fight even that battle. Where I walk around in a sari the whole time. I'm not in a space where I can walk around in a sari all time because most of the youngsters are always in western clothes. So वहां से लेके up to your job and to proving yourself on your job, challenges are going to be there. Like Aditi said, if not this, then something else.
Hmm.
So, of course, the challenges about women not getting an equal right to education, women not being treated on par at a place of work, which is we are all equal opportunities employees now. In my own organization, we have 50% women working, and most of them are on their second innings. We have given chance to people who have come back from career breaks. They take a longer time to normalize. They take a longer time to learn, but we have given that opportunity. So challenges, if not this, then something else will crop up. So it is up to us to be able to mitigate that as per the current circumstance. I have always believed that the end of education is character, not my words, it is the words of my Baba. Also, end of education is the ability to practically implement what you have learned. Keep listening to the stimuli you're receiving from the environment. Practicalize what you have learned. If your learning is not enough, then augment your knowledge base. From these you will definitely from these you will definitely get the way to solve the challenge that you're currently facing. It is going to be always there. It is a constant in life. I'm sorry, the second question of yours was about a bias against uh,
No, the second question was about how can technology create a more inclusive environment.
more yeah, about how technology is does not know gender, does not know age.
Hmm.
It is one of the most unbiased tools that we hold in our hand now. It does not care who is using it. The reason why AI is coming up is because of this. It does not care what time of the day or night you asked it a question. You can't go and disturb your professor at 2 o'clock in the night just because you were sitting and studying with a query, right? But you can disturb AI, you can disturb technology with it. Because for technology, it is not aware of the time. Its performance is a standard, constant, whatever be the time of the day, night, who is using it, which geography, it does not change its performance. So for a world that treats everyone as an equal, for a world that has got equal opportunities for everyone out there, technology is the way to go. It does not really care whether it is at that point teaching someone maths or English, or it is at that point trying to fire a rocket into space. It works with equal commitment at both places. It gives its 100% wherever you're using it. So these kind of qualities that technology offer to us, I would say it is the base for creating an equal world. The same, for instance, when we talk about blockchain, when we talk about why to put technology on it, we are trying to aim those parts of the world which are still untouched by technology using these techniques. Technology is not equally available to everybody in the world, right? So that is one part of technology that still needs to be normalized, where the access to technology is equal to everybody in the world. So once we have mitigated that point, then you have a system out there that can be completely unbiased and give the same result and same treatment no matter who is using it from where. So technology is the way to go for a world of equals, I would say.
Absolutely, I think it is for there to see, especially in the during the COVID and the post-COVID world, how it connected, and I think um, probably that's the only discovery which actually rids us all of biases. So
Exactly.
um, thank you so much to all of you. I know we've kind of overshot a little bit, but I think this is an important conversation to have. When I was writing up the concept for this, the basic concept for this conversation, I think the thing which came to my mind was, if we focused less on who's speaking and focus on what is being said, I think we would slowly and steadily move towards an equitable world. And I know that it's probably not completely possible, that's a good thing, because then we'll keep trying to move towards that world. So thank you, Dr. Sujata. Thank you, Aditi. Thank you, Yaminiji, for your time. I am truly, truly grateful, and I can tell you I've learned so much in this conversation. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Between Us podcast. The producer is Santosh Kumar, and the associate producer is Samyak Kamble. The Between Us podcast uploads episodes weekly, and we'll see you next time.